happy Wednesday to the world out there. Gentlemen, how you doing this fine evening?
Good. How are you?
Doing good. You know, got the Christmas tree up, got some presents under that tree, talking to Santa, doing all the things, getting my coal ready.
I sent you guys presents.
Oh, gonna get big coal from Ross.
You'll get it by the 13th. Nah. Now you'll like it. We'll talk about it next week. Open it early.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm happy to hear you guys seem to be doing well. There was this game that was played on Sunday night, and it didn't quite go to plan. I don't know how else to say it.
No recollection of that. What?
Yeah, I must have missed it.
No, but talk about like a mood changer, right? Like a week and a half ago, we're like, oh my God, they're doing the new edition dance. And like, I'm out like trying to think of new suggestions for that kind of thing. And we're just like looking at the schedule going, man, where's New Orleans loss going to come from so we can grab that number one? I bought my airplane tickets to the playoffs. And now you get the one loss. And it wasn't just a loss. It was the way they lost, the listlessness, and man, is the mood changed. Man, is Twitter somber. Man, is my mood. Talk about a buzzkill.
I think that's kind of like the best word to describe what that loss was, because it wasn't like a competitive loss like, oh, if we had just made a couple plays. It's like, no, that was a pretty thorough beatdown. It was, 21-3 at one point?
Yeah, it was.
I mean, There was no offensive touchdowns. There was a lot of bad play that could have led to touchdowns, but for the most part, outside of that opening drive and that last field goal, those were like their best drives that entire game.
Then Penny goes down.
Penny goes down on one touch. I mean, that... And here's the thing. Everyone is down that he is gone. I mean, we were talking like 4 weeks ago, like, oh, if we can get a fourth for him, we should make a trade.
Why didn't they take that third from the Vikings?
Right, exactly.
How quickly he became
the Vikings, the Lions.
How quickly he became like an integral part of this offense.
Right, and now we're looking at
crazy.
CJ Prosize.
Man.
Like it's brutal too because it didn't. I'm pretty good. One of my pride points is I think I'm pretty good at diagnosing injuries based off of film. I'm pretty accurate. If I talk with you guys about it, and I've got a pretty good track record. I didn't originally think that was going to be anything like an ACL. It didn't look classically like an ACL to me.
Yeah, there was no like weird footing. It basically looked like he just slipped and fell to the ground, right?
I mean, I knew he hit his knee, so I was thinking like maybe like a meniscus. Something like that, like some crunching going there in the internal part, or it didn't look like the classic, like, ligaments are stuck because the bone's going the wrong way or something. It didn't look like that to me, but
I think the thing is, like, the one thing about that game is this is the game where I feel like our injuries showed up so much more. Like the fact that we had players on the offensive line that were missing, players in the receiving core, like our tight end missing. I think those really hurt the team because, Joey Hunt, I think, has done an admirable job this year, but he's just not a great matchup against a strong bull rush. We've seen him get beat off the block, just head-to-head, one-on-one, like up the gut.
Yeah, he needs, what I want him most to do? This is going to sound retarded. Oh, I can't say that. I want him to take like some serious judo classes. Because he's always going to be like shorter and smaller than the person in front of him, but he should be able to use that to his advantage if they get over aggressive.
And that's the thing. Like I feel like Joey Hunt, he's the kind of player that as the game progresses, he plays smart and he does better and better. Initially in the game, he just kind of like gets eaten up, but against that Rams front defensive line, they just did a really good job of getting penetration. Our offensive line as a whole, I thought, played poorly, and we'll talk a little bit about that more. But this game, it was something where the Seahawks, no matter, even in garbage time, they really couldn't get anything done, which is really, really a shock. And, credit to the Rams. for not giving up. They're chasing a wild card spot. They have an uphill battle. They have to basically win out and hope either Green Bay, Minnesota, or Seattle loses I think like 3 games just to get a lock, not rely on a crazy tiebreaker.
Right. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's. I liked it better when they were like rolling over and playing dead for a few weeks. But we knew they weren't going to do that. Yeah. So, I mean, they're. Did we know that? I don't know. We were talking last week. We all kind of acknowledged the fact that McVay, things haven't gone his way, but he's still okay. McVay.
Right? I think you're exactly right. He's still okay, and the Rams are still a damn thorn in our side.
They are, and it's for different reasons. Obviously, now, I think before it was because Jeff Fisher treated the Seahawks as his own personal Super Bowl every year, and saved every trick and every clever idea he had for those 2 games. Screw the other 14 games. This is where I'm going to do my cool punt idea. This is where I'm going to do my cool punt passing. This is where I'm going to do my cool lineman do the thing. But the other 14 games, whatever. All my tricks go in these 2 games. Now, I think that Pete Carroll hasn't quite come around with solid principles on how to defeat McVay's offense when it's running well. Not to say he won't. I just think he has a hard time. It matches up well with what Pete wants to do. And so he's gonna. I have faith that the chess match will continue, and then we'll get our shots in. But it's a challenge for him right now, and that's fine. Some schemes match up better than other schemes, better than other ones, right? So that's just part of it. But Pete's gonna have to find it, and I think he'd admit that. I don't think I'm being a basher here. I think he'd admit that.
Yeah.
Would you say that because of the loss that you put more on Pete for the manner in which they lost?
I don't know, man. Go ahead, Zeb.
Well, now you go ahead because I have a kind of a different idea I want to talk about.
Okay. This one was not a very Seahawky loss. We don't usually lose by that much, and I don't know. I know what you're saying, and in a sense, maybe I do. Maybe I put it on all the coaching because maybe they just didn't come to play. But I sort of felt like the whole team was. It's gonna sound stupid. Almost sort of under the same spell. They had all sort of read the same press clippings. They started to believe it, and I'm hoping that's all it is. Sometimes there's just a game where there's not too much you can take away from it. A couple things happen here, a couple things happen there, and that just unbalances the top that's spinning and everything, and it flies off. It just felt like that kind of game. There were some lessons. Like I said, I do believe that McVay's offense is a particular challenge for Pete. But other than that, this has just felt like get off your high horse kind of game, and that happens sometimes, right? They don't always end up in losses. Sometimes it's a team that you should crush takes you all the way to overtime when you finally win, but you're like, wow, I don't really feel awesome about that win. But sometimes they're just games where you just get an old-fashioned butt whipping, and it happens. It doesn't mean you're not a good team. It doesn't mean whatever. It means that's just football. Football's really complicated. If you look at the Patriots' best years, except for that year they went 16-0 in the regular season, there are games where they just didn't show up. Last week or 2 weeks ago, they didn't show up to a game, and that's still a really well-coached team. It's a weird thing, man.
So think about that real quick. Sorry, Zeb, but right now there's 2 teams that have a 3 or more game winning streak: the Tennessee Titans and the Baltimore Ravens. No team has won more than 2 games in a row as it stands right now. Going into this game against the Rams, Seattle had a 5-game win streak. So a lot of teams had their win streaks cut short, and it sucks to have a team lose, but we're talking about the 3rd loss of the year, which, going into the 14th game of the year, it's not a bad thing. So, I think everyone's down, but I think at least we're able to bounce back and kind of say, it's not the end of the world, because we're not desperate for a win. We're not the Rams that have to fight and claw for every win. We're not like the Cowboys who are going to limp into the playoffs, or the Eagles. The Seahawks are still in a pretty good spot, right?
Yeah, absolutely they are. I mean, we still, as far as the division goes, we still control our own destiny. All we got to do is win, and the division is ours. So
we have two not so difficult games coming up, and then sort of like the championship game of the regular season coming up, which is what it's going to feel like.
Yeah,
and that'll determine our destiny.
It's going to feel like a playoff game, probably.
Yeah,
it might be, depending on how things go.
And man, I chose not to go to that game. That's how much I was suckered in. I almost bought my tickets for December 27th. So I'd be there for the game on the 29th. Instead, I went and put all my chips on January 10th. So things better go as planned. So I'm not over there just like sitting in a bar watching a game being played in Minnesota or something.
There's still a good chance. So the Seahawks return to their House of Horrors. They have only won once in the last 4 trips down to LA, and that loss takes their undefeated road crown with it. The team did not look like itself after rolling 5 wins in a row. A win, the Niners with a late win against the Saints, and the Seahawks fell to the top wildcard spot, and they've lost the lead in the NFC West. The Seahawks do look to rebound against the Carolina Panthers, who will be without former MVP Cam Newton and 2-time Coach of the Year Ron Rivera, but will have running back MVP candidate Christian McCaffrey to contend with. This is the Hawkscast podcast brought to you by the Hawkscast Forum. And gentlemen, we got a lot of stuff to talk about, but I do want to talk about topic number 1. And Zeb, I want to know from you, is it good for the Seahawks to get a loss out now before the playoffs?
If there was like an allotment of losses you had to have during a season, then maybe. Or if we were like undefeated and there was like this weight of not wanting to lose a game the whole rest of the year, maybe. But I don't think that this team was in any position to need to lose a game for any kind of mental reason or anything like that. I feel like, and maybe this is just wishful thinking from a fan's perspective, a little bit of a conspiracy theory, but this game felt to me like one of those games where you don't want to show a bunch of stuff for whatever reason. It felt like the team, on defense, the team stayed in base almost the entire game, and that was with a rookie backup linebacker playing. You know what I mean? Barton was in there almost the entire game, and I think that showed. Going up against a team that has receivers like Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Brandon Cooks, you'd think you'd want kind of your best nickel guy out there for most of the game. Not that we have a super reliable nickel guy necessarily, but it just felt like a game where we didn't make a lot of adjustments when things started to go bad. And I have to wonder if there's a reason why we didn't do that. I don't expect that we'll see the Rams again this season. Like you said, it's a long road for them to make it into the playoffs. So I don't know how that necessarily makes sense, but it felt that way to me. It felt like one of those losses we were willing to take for one reason or another. Maybe it was because everybody was sick going into the game, or the week leading up to it, or it was just one of those games where things didn't look good from the start for whatever reason. But I don't know. I don't think. I don't know if maybe it'll be a motivating loss. I guess it's possible. But as far as I don't know, we pretty much have to go on a pretty good win streak at this point if we want to compete for a championship at the end of the year. I don't see any reason getting a loss out of the way would be beneficial for this team.
So, Ross, what about you? Do you subscribe to that idea of, get a loss out now?
I mean, yeah, but no, but yeah. I'm not going to commit to it. No, I just, like Zeb said, it's not like there's like 16 marbles in a bag and 4 of them are white and 12 of them are black, and you just got to get those white marbles out of the way before you get to the playoffs. It doesn't quite work like that, but and it's not a statistical thing. I hate when people use statistics in the wrong sense because we're not flipping coins, we're not rolling dice. It's not a mathematical model. Sorry about that. I just got my other work phone. Sorry. Anyway, you can't. Yeah, so there's not statistically things that have to happen, but at the same time, you look at a season, you go like, what are the odds we're really going to finish like 14-2? So not very great. Have we ever been 14? Like even in our Super Bowl years, we're 13-3 max,
13
right?
13-3 has been the best, and before that, it's 2-12-4 years.
Right. So, I mean, 14-2 is really, really hard to do, and so you kind of figure this because again, like football's really, really complicated. Football's really, really hard, as we say over and over again. So you kind of figure at some point there's going to be a loss, maybe. And if we had to lose one of the 4 final games, that's the one you want to lose, right? Because you don't want to lose San Francisco head-to-head. It's right when it's going to count. You don't want to drop one of those 2 easy games because that means things are going. That would indicate something really bad is going on. If you had to lose a game and keep your self-esteem, you want to lose to a late surging Rams team that's given you fits in the past, and it's kind of a meaningless game, right? Like we lost that game. We still control our destiny. We still have 2 relatively easy games, kind of. And then what was, like we just said, that sort of mock pseudo playoff game with the 49ers. So it's never good to lose a game in a sense. Zeb is totally right with that. But if you're going to lose one, that's the one to lose. And even though you don't want it, again, you think they're all professional. You think they'll always have the right mentality. But I mean, even, with the introduction of Twitter, you can see it's not true. I mean, the players are still very much young men who are susceptible to young men's thinking. And so it did seem like a couple of them maybe had sort of what we call the victory disease after 5 in a row. And we're out there doing our dances and stuff. And it's, after every turnover and every defensive offside play, they're all taking selfies in the end zone. You can see there's a tiny bit of like maybe they need to be smacked down a little bit and go, you know what? It's not as easy as it looks. And you know what? We've gotten away with a tiny bit, maybe there's been games up to that we didn't play our best, but we still came away with the win. And so, yeah, I don't like the fact that has to even happen. And maybe it didn't have to happen, but Twitter, not Seahawks Twitter, but like reading players and stuff, like, because you have a little bit more access than you used to get and seeing their own attitudes and things like that. Maybe there was a little bit of space for, you know what, guys? Don't take it seriously. Don't make every single catch. Don't do your job exactly right every single time. And this is what can happen. We aren't just going to lose. It's going to be a demoralizing sort of franchise shaking type loss where everybody's now like, oh my gosh, really? And now we went from number 1 or 2 to down to number 5. Bam.
So one thing I want to add real quick.
Yes, please.
We, throughout the years, almost always shit the bed against a divisional opponent in the last 4 weeks of the season. Almost without fail, it happens. And it's been the Cardinals, it's been the Rams, it's been the 49ers. Games that we should win, there's almost always one we don't. So
why is that?
I don't know.
Division games are tough.
Yeah.
People want to take down the best team, and people are going to give the Seahawks their best shot because the Seahawks have been a good team for most of the time that these players and coaches have been around.
Yeah. I don't know. To me, if you look at it kind of from that perspective, it's just not that crazy. And it helps me look past the loss a lot quicker. It's one game. We're in a good position. It's not necessarily spelling out our doom. It's not all downhill from here. You know what I mean? There's a lot of football left to play still.
I think this question is kind of even though I'm the one that wrote this question, I think it's kind of dumb because no, it's never good to lose. It's never good to lose. Like Ross said, it's not like there's allocated losses to every team at the beginning of the year. It's like, oh, Browns, we're going to give you these 9 losses, sprinkle these 7 wins somewhere around just to keep the fans interested. It's that's not the way the world works. That's not the way games work. That's not the way the NFL, and that's definitely not the way these Seahawks work. The idea that they have a loss, the one thing that I think is unique to Seattle is that they will rebound from this loss better than most other teams. You look at what has happened this year. This is only their third loss in 13 games. They've had really good stretches through the entire year where they're not consistent, and we've talked about their inconsistency. But the one thing they do is they continue to claw back. That mantra of you can't win till the fourth quarter. This is a game where the Seahawks look like they really didn't have it, even in the fourth quarter. Russell Wilson had a couple drives where, if the wide receiver does their job, they have a touchdown, and maybe they have a chance. The Seahawks actually outscored the Rams in the second half. Now, they were down 14 before that, but they ended up scoring 9 points to the Rams 7. So, if the Seahawks potentially play a game a little bit more consistently, that game's maybe closer, and who knows what happens. Not going to go out there and say, like, the Seahawks are going to win that game. That was a bad game for the Seahawks.
I mean, it sounds so ridiculous after this, but the game was there. I mean, for example, Chris Carson dropped a swing pass. I don't know if you remember. Sorry, a pass in the flat, a screen pass. I don't know if you guys are weird and go back and watch the all 22 like I'm an idiot and do sometimes.
Not in games they lose.
On that game, on that play, if he catches that, that's probably a touchdown. Actually, you can't see it in the normal game film, but he's got Joey Hunt in front of him. Actually on the second level, actually making a good block. That's the only Ram player.
Yeah. I think that's the thing that is that frustrating thing. When you're that inconsistent of a team, your flaws will look that much worse. And when you win 10 out of 13 games, the flaws, they're still there. They're still worth talking about. They don't resonate as strong. But in a game like this, where they do lose by double-digit points, something that is so rare, they lose on a primetime game, another thing that is so rare. If there's any team that's going to rebound, it is going to be the Seattle team, because that's just not who Russell Wilson is. That's not who Pete Carroll is. They are the eternal optimists, the eternal, we're going to right the ship, and this is how we're going to do it. And I think that's a great thing. That's one thing. While as bummed as I am about this loss, it's not good that the Seahawks lost, because they don't need those losses to humble them or to get them prepared. Maybe for some of the younger players, they do need that reset every once in a while, but Pete and Russell don't. And Russell played a pretty great game. I mean, he does have an interception to end the game, but that's why Pete doesn't like to do those plays. But for the most part, it looked like he was hitting the receivers where they were able to catch the ball, and the receivers, I feel like, maybe didn't do enough sometimes.
Well, I mean, you had Hollister drop a pass, you had Malik Turner drop a pass, and these are like drive-killing drops. Third down, and that's the thing, like, it changes the game. Like, if you make that thing and then we get the drive, if you don't have drives, then you don't get to do what you want to do, right? If you don't get 20 plays to do your thing, then you'll never know what the game plan is.
Yeah.
So you get a couple early drops and they score a couple touchdowns, and things can get out of hand really quickly in a football game.
Yeah. Final thoughts about that loss. Anything else about the Rams loss that you guys want to talk about real quick?
Has it affected your image of the team?
No. I mean, I saw them as a flawed team. It was a bad game, inconsistent. I didn't really think. It has not changed my mind of what I think this team could do if they play how they've done the previous 12 games.
Okay. Zeb?
Yeah, I pretty much feel the same way. If this team comes out this next weekend and looks like the team that lost to the Rams again, then I'll probably think differently. But if they kind of get back to what they were doing, which I expect them to, it just ended up being one of those games that didn't go our way.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to topic number 2, because Ross, you basically were bringing this up, and topic number 2, I want to start with you. can players play at an MVP level by themselves, or is Wilson's cast letting him down? And this is more so to what we saw with Russell Wilson that game. Outside of that interception, I thought he played a pretty good game. He didn't get a lot of help, but what's your take on Russ and the game and his supporting cast?
You can play at an MVP level by yourself, but your odds of being noticed that you're playing at an MVP level are quite low. Does that make sense? I don't think you're going to get the news coverage. Nobody's going to. Okay, like we said, when the Seahawks won the Super Bowl versus the Broncos, Peyton Manning set a record he set a couple of passing records that game, and so did Demaryius Thomas for receptions in a game and yardage or whatever. But nobody's going to remember that. Nobody cares, except for Seahawks fans.
We will remember it sarcastically.
Yeah, right. And only Seahawks fans will even remember who we played. Everybody else remembers who won the Super Bowl. Nobody remembers who lost the Super Bowl, except for freaks. But so great, Russell Wilson. I mean, I disagree with you on how good of a game he played, but even if he played flawless football, it doesn't matter. You can be let down by your cast. And that's why it's even so more. This is a Seahawks fans podcast, so let's mention it. Cortez Kennedy winning Defensive Player of the Year on a 2-14 team.
Yep.
I mean, that makes it that much more that he could win that. So Russell could be still playing. I don't think he's playing anywhere near an MVP level right now, but no touchdowns, and he's being somewhat let down. But he was also he didn't have an extra interception. He went deep on one throw and didn't have this arc and didn't have the yardage on it, and could have been intercepted. He could have had a couple more interceptions that game. I don't know. But that's the thing is, you shouldn't even whine or complain about that, because at the end of the game, and there's no way around it, football's a team game. You worry about the MVPs and your individual efforts later, because if you're really, really an MVP player, especially at that position, if you're the quarterback and an MVP player, your job is to elevate everybody around you, and he normally does. But your job is to win Super Bowls with wide receivers that were all undrafted, right? Like we did. That's what you're you need to elevate everybody around you. And it didn't happen last game. That's all we got to say about that. You can play at that level, but it doesn't matter if you're not elevated.
Russ looked different to me than he has all year, or most of the time to me. He didn't look like he had that swagger or that confidence that you typically expect him to have. And a lot of people were speculating that maybe he was sick, that he had the flu. He came out in the press conference, I think yesterday, and said that wasn't true. He didn't. So take that for what it's worth. But
the Russell apologist, for the last two games, immediately go I saw him cough.
Well, yeah, you know what?
I saw him cough.
He coughs. I don't know if you guys have noticed it or this. I imagine other people have.
He's got a tick, right?
He has a cough. Yeah, it comes out here and there over the years. He was coughing. I think he was coughing against the Packers in the playoffs. He's just got this weird cough. I don't know what it is, but
maybe he's a closet smoker.
Yeah, he just smokes stogies after the game.
He's a 1970s baseball player.
A couple of things about this topic. Another one of these kind of perennial things where it feels like every time the MVP conversation heats up around Russell, he just kind of falls off. And I don't know what that's about. I can't imagine it has anything to do with the MVP award. It's probably just coincidence, but just kind of feels that way. Like he's really good going into the last quarter of the season, and people are start talking about him being an MVP candidate, and then he just has a few of these bad games, and the talk goes away. I do feel like, and I think I don't know if you guys might agree with me or not, but I feel like this season in particular has been kind of interesting on offense, where it almost didn't matter who we're plugging in at tight end. They were making plays. Guys like Hollister and Luke Wilson were making crazy catches and Hollister in particular. Like nobody was expecting him to go out and make one-handed grabs for touchdowns and first downs and stuff like that. Like I think we all had come to expect that out of Will Dissly. Like he kind of had become like this the future at the tight end position for us. But it kind of seems like no matter who we plug in there, they've been making plays. And then guys like Tyler Lockett, who I get this feeling that for most of this season and last year, he's kind of punching above his weight a little bit. He's, I'm not saying he's not as good as it seems as he's playing, or that the stats say, but it just feels like there's extraordinary moments that keep happening one after another. These crazy catches for touchdowns and him basically just defying the odds and being one of the most productive receivers in the league, despite all the reasons why you would think that wouldn't be the case.
So you're kind of thinking he should revert to the mean a bit.
And yeah, it just seems like
I totally get what you're saying. I totally understand. Like, that you can't make 5 1 in a quote unquote million catches over and over again. Like you just can't do it. Eventually, some of those you're going to land out of bounds. Your toe doesn't get in. The defensive player puts his finger on it.
Especially in a season like this, where we've talked about this too, we keep winning these close games. Like eventually, you're not gonna win a few of them. You know what I mean? Things are gonna go the other way. I'm not saying that this is, I think, a turn for the team coming back down to earth. I really do believe in this team and its ability to win games, but I don't know. There's a lot of factors at play here that. I don't know. Russell clearly is not playing at an MVP level right now, and I think it's probably equal parts him and the people that he has around him.
So I want to add a slight spin to this and say, yes, players can play at an MVP level by themselves, like Ross says, but Wilson's cast is letting him down, and I think part of it is Russell Wilson, in the fact that he will go to a guy again and again and again. It's almost like in basketball, if someone's in a slump and they're a shooter, the only way to get out of a slump is to keep shooting. And that's what Russell Wilson does. He showed that in the NFC Championship game against Green Bay. Jermaine Kearse, I'm going to throw you one of these balls and you're finally going to catch one. Nope. Okay, touchdown. Let's go to the Super Bowl. Russell Wilson's throwing to Malik Turner. He's throwing to Hollister, he's thrown to Carson, he's thrown to all of these people that you don't think of as like, these should be your go-to. Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, for the most part, have had a pretty good year. Tyler Lockett, I'm just looking at it right now, he's got 874 yards right now, and he's got 3 games left. He has a very good chance to hit 1,000 yards. DK Metcalf, a little bit, it's not that much tougher. He has to average like 70 yards over the next 3 games, and he's going to have 1,000-yard year. He caught 6 for 6, 65. Tyler caught 4 for 6. So those 2 guys, Russell Wilson trusts explicitly, no doubt at all. But Russ is still throwing to guys that you kind of question, like, is that the one you should be throwing to? Like, Russ,
I disagree.
But that's the thing. Russ trusts them to make those plays, but those players are not the consistent people. Like, we are surprised when Malik Turner comes in and gets three catches and 75 yards, because he'll go 4 games before he even gets another look. And I think that's where his cast is letting him down, because Russell Wilson will trust them, and they sometimes are not able to capitalize, because there was like a play, I think it was in the 4th quarter. They're trying to keep a drive alive. Wilson gets flushed. He has I think it was Carson. He has a chance. Russ floats it, and Carson just kind of lets up on the play, and the ball just drops like 3 feet in front of him. You know? And again, I'm nitpicking, but the point that I'm trying to make is that Wilson's cast is not as good as him, and he does bring them up a lot, but when they fail collectively, it's because the receiver doesn't do enough on their end. Russ is going to give them that chance. Russ is going to keep looking for them, but they're not always going to capitalize because they're just not as good as he is, and they can't take care of all of those opportunities that Russ will create for them sometimes.
Man, who slipped you an Austin Slater pill this morning?
I'm saying in that game that was a game that I felt that Russell Wilson played a pretty solid game. I'm not saying an A+ game, but like, a B. It could have been an A if his teammates made plays. And I'm saying they make all the plays, but just make a little bit more than what they did.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I get what you're trying to say. I disagree with all of your examples along. Malik Turner, like, man, like Twitter was full. It's like, why are you calling plays to Malik Turner? Why are you calling plays to Malik Turner?
And I don't want to say, like, I don't want Russ to go to him. I'm just saying that he's not the player that's always going to be the one to make the play.
Malik Turner has a higher catch percentage than DK Metcalf. Period. He does.
But that's based upon opportunity, right?
Well, I mean, he's caught 11 out of 16, and you were talking about how like a Russell Wilson, like you said, like if a receiver's having a bad game, sometimes he'll purposely go back to them on purpose to build their confidence up. The classic example being that NFC Championship game. I mean, that story will almost make you tear up, right? If you're a human being.
Yes.
Where, like,
100%
just
every
like,
single time.
When I tell people that, it's weird. Like I actually do get teary when I talk about, and then he gets to the overtime and he tells him he's going to go to him, right? But like DK Metcalf had one of those games a couple weeks ago where everybody's like, why is Russell Wilson locked on DK Metcalf? Because he was trying. I thought he was trying to do that. DK Metcalf had a couple drops, so Russell Wilson just kept going back to him and going back to him and going back to him. And DK Metcalf ended up with 2 catches for the game. I mean, he never caught on. He never caught them. He never became Superman again. I'm actually wondering if DK Metcalf has hit his sort of freshman wall. A lot of freshmen, like first-year players, do. Like in college, you only ever play 12 or 13 games. You get to the NFL, you play 16 plus the preseason. And so a lot of them hit that wall, right? I'm kind of wondering if that's where he's at, because the last game or two, DK Metcalf hasn't been very DK Metcalf-ish. Yeah, but that could also be because I don't think Russell Wilson, in my opinion, very Russell Wilson's last 4 games.
I don't know, man. DK has 5 games this year with over 70 yards, and 4 of them are
right,
the last,
because he's getting more volume. Games. He's certainly getting more volume now. But has he really looked the same to you, like when he was making those like amazing catches, and is he coming free? And part of it's because defenses have adjusted. Right? We're playing a lot of double safety deeps these days instead of single safety. And we play the 49ers, and they're supposed to have a Seahawks clone defense, but they didn't do that.
Yeah. Real quick, I want to throw some stats out here. So DK has been targeted 83 times. He's caught 50, so he's got a 60% catch rate. Tyler Lockett has been targeted 87 times, and he has 67 catches for a 68.9% catch rate. So we're talking about almost identical targets.
Right.
But we're talking about the difference of
look at DK's catch rate for the last 2 games.
Right?
Well, yeah, he was 6 of 6 last game. That's true. But they're also like kind of different types of routes. There was nothing deep. There were no like what you call like challenge catches, right? So,
right. I think at this point he's not the 50-50 ball, the high pointer that everybody wanted him to be, but he kind of is the guy where you get the ball in his hands close to the line of scrimmage and he's going to make something happen as long as he doesn't fumble.
That's true. I agree with that. Tyler Lockett's catch percentage, by the way, is almost identical to who? Malik Turner. It's 0.6 difference.
I like Malik Turner.
Malik Turner is like, I mean, he doesn't get his chance because he's the 3rd or 4th receiver in a run first offense or run a lot offense. But that dude, actually now he's 4th because now we've got Josh Gordon. So.
Right, and I don't want to turn this into like a Malik Turner's garbage because that's not the topic. That's what Seahawks Twitter would turn it into.
Do you hate everybody named Malik?
Why? Seriously, that's so racist. Why is this become? I don't understand when this podcast became an anti-Malik Turner like.
Right, it's not an anti-Malik Turner. It's the idea, and he's the example, right? And
he had a drop, but like whatever.
But
as far as Russell Wilson's interception, I had the feeling that Russell Wilson was like, we're down by more than 1 score, and there's 41 seconds left. I really think that I tweeted that. I was just like you could see the wheels grind in Russell Wilson's head. And when he decided just to throw that ball up, I'm like, okay, he's not a quitter. He's never going to quit. But I think he's just like, you know what? Let's just throw this up because mathematically we have to score on this play and we'll see what happens. If the interception, fuck it. Throw it up.
And that's why I don't think stats tell the whole story, right? I thought Russell played a pretty solid game. Him chucking the ball in a game where a touchdown is not going to make a difference, an interception is not going to make a difference. I'm not going to be down on him for that. I would like to see, and this is maybe that consistency that we talked about before, because they don't have that. That's going to be a lot tougher for them.
Yeah.
All right, let's move along. Final comments. All right, cool. All right, let's go to topic number 3, and this is about the Seahawks Twitter, because there was a lot of talk about that Seahawks offensive line. I actually threw a thread on this. It's got the next 3 years and the contracts for the Seahawks offensive line, including players that are currently IR'd. Seahawks Twitter, Zeb, I want to know, should the Seahawks start over on the offensive line next year?
Yeah, let's just draft a whole new O-line next year. That should probably work out pretty good, huh?
That's it, all right, moving on.
I mean, look, the O-line didn't have a great game this past weekend, but they haven't had a terrible season. There's been some injuries. I think what Joey Hunt lacks in just physical ability and size, he kind of makes up for in
Hair.
In hair. Oh, yes, also being very pale. Accomplishment of his. He makes up from what I I don't know about this stuff, but from what I'm hearing from the people who I trust is he makes the right line calls every time. He's good for that. He does that better than Britt, or better than whoever else has been available at center for us. So he's added some stability where he maybe gets overpowered, especially by a team like the Rams.
Like, when do you want Aaron Donald lining up over Joey Hunt?
Yeah, physically that's just not the look. We're getting into a point where we're going to have to decide whether or not to pay Fetty. That's a tough one, right? Like, who knows what kind of market he's going to have.
If Fetty's like the best bad lineman out there, man.
Yeah, he's like that guy where you wish you had somebody better than him, but you just don't. So is it worth it to pay him to keep that, or do you just toss him away and take the risk at finding somebody better, or at least equally capable for a lower price? I don't know.
Who was the right tackle when we went to Super Bowl 2005? I forget his name.
Sean Locklear.
Yeah, aren't they kind of the same guy? Like, they're not good enough to keep, but they're too good to cut.
The difference is that Fetty's a first rounder and Locklear was like a 4th or 5th, I think.
Right, but the fact is, by the end of the contract, you have to make the decision, and you walk this. We let Locklear go, and we kind of regretted it.
We kept him though for a while. Like, he was there for Beastquake. So
was he?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm thinking of something else.
I know Tyler Columbus is, because he got called out in the replay.
Yeah, Columbus was in there for sure because I said his name like 19 times during the replay. I feel like Sean Locklear in 2005 was one of the better right tackles. I think he kind of had shored up the position for us, if I remember correctly.
The thing is, like, in real life, if Fetty actually has that, he's never gonna like overcome the image problem, but he's become mostly solid.
Yeah, and I think most people agree that this offensive line is just more suited for run blocking. They're road graders. They're not the best.
By design.
Sean Locklear, 2010, played right tackle, 16 games, 15 starts.
Yeah.
That surprises me. Wow.
Good old Sean Locklear, looking like young Forrest Whitaker.
He played 2 years after that. He played a year in Washington and a year in New York Giants. So it's not like he had a long career after Seattle.
No.
He also had his name prominently displayed in a movie.
Oh, yeah?
No. Do you know that movie, The Fixer, with George Clooney?
No.
The what?
George Clooney's in a movie called The Fixer. Pretty good flick, kind of a thriller. And he's going through Times Square, and there's like a ticker playing, and it's announcing that Sean Locklear is like questionable for the game.
Nice.
It's because it's like written like those ticker tape kind of like, yeah, like it's like a big billboard thing going by in the background. But it's like super clear. It's almost like it's supposed to be like foreshadowing. Be like that has nothing to do with anything. It just there's obviously a Seahawks game is about to happen. It's weird.
Locklear's only 38. Maybe we could, at least
sign that dude.
Vet minimum.
So anyway, should we start over on the line?
Yeah, Ross, what do you think about that?
I don't know.
Take it to Twitter.
To me, I feel like Joey Hunt is an ideal backup center. I don't think you can get away with him for 16 games plus playoffs. I mean, like this year is sort of like his ceiling, right? He's performing pretty well. He can be overwhelmed with the line of scrimmage if defenses scheme that way. But I feel like also we can take advantage of that as well. So like you can sort of mitigate damage there. After that, I mean, like, should I go into my Moneyball spiel? I mean, like Zeb said, this is our road grading thing. If you want to pay for a pass blocking left tackle or pass blocking left guard, even like that's their forte, you're going to pay $9 million now. That's the market. Sometimes 10, it feels like.
Yeah.
But we can get road grading left guards for $2.2 million. So, you know what? If that fits and that goes, like, let's do that. I don't want to start necessarily all over again. I want to be healthy. I want to have better depth, maybe, but I don't think the line's all that bad. And to get better, you have to ask, what do you want to take it away from? And that's the big question.
Yep.
I mean, I know that people want to use the draft capital on it, and I wouldn't mind that, depending on who's there. But again, it's all opportunity cost. If you wanted to spend $10 million more on the offensive line this year, who did you not want to spend that $10 million on?
You're not getting Davian Clowney.
Right. I mean, it's just
you're not going to get Quandre Diggs.
It's why it's so frustrating. It's why it's almost not fun to discuss it among people like us, because when you discuss it among the amateurs, everybody has that opinion. Like, man, they should have just got this guy. But that's because you don't have to do it as a job, because you don't have to then figure out how that's going to affect the cap. You don't have to figure out what other position you're going to take that resource away from, because you get, $20 and you go spend $20. And if you spend $5 more on the pepperoni, then you're going to have to skimp on the cheese and your pizza sucks.
Yeah.
Or, you're building a pizza and you got a budget. So, and you got to put all the things together, and everything affects everything else. It's all moving pieces. And so it's really easy to say, hey, you know what, rebuild that offensive line. But that means you're making a huge commit to that. And it means you're probably going to have to go back to doing things like every single wide receiver is a UDFA and every tight end is a practice guard now. So maybe you're not going to, right now, would you rather spend more draft capital next year on the defensive line or the offensive line? Because our big liability right now may still be the defensive rush.
I agree with that. And I think that's why it's funny, because we can talk about it, because I feel like we have more understanding of it's not just about this year, it's about what can we do for next year, because we're not selling out for this year and selling out for next year. It's selling out never. It's about being competitive and trying to build a balance. The Seahawks should not start over on offensive line, but they kind of might have to, because I'm going to read you a quick thing. I put this on the forums. Go to hawkscast.com. So next year for 2020, you're going to have Dwayne Brown at $12 million, Justin Britt coming back from injury at $11.6 million, Jermaine Ifedi is a free agent, Mike Upati is a free agent, DJ Fluker for $3.5 Ethan Posick, who is supposed to be your heir apparent, he's going to come back potentially this year. He's 1.4. Joey Hunt's a free agent. Phil Haynes, who just came back from the pup, he's $750,000. And then it's a bunch of guys like Jamarco Jones. That's really the only other person worth talking about. George Fant, Jermaine Ifedi, Mike Upati, Joey Hunt, all free agents next year. So you have 4 guys that have played significant time on your offensive line that you have to lock into, and it's always going to be more than what we're paying them right now. So to your point, Ross, that's money you don't have, because if you want to extend someone, or if you have to restructure someone else, or you have to look at where these moving pieces are. And that offensive line is really going to come out of the draft, and it's going to come off some, late street free agents. I don't see what they're going to do this year, because I'm not sure of the players that they're going to lose to free agency. I'm not sure who you have to keep. None of these guys are irreplaceable. You might even look at Justin Britt and say, you know what? we might take the cap hit, get that extra money, and we'll spend his contract on 2.5 offensive linemen because that's what they will probably do.
Hey, speaking of drafts, we talked about how this team needs to draft better. Look at that 2018 draft now, huh?
It's pretty solid. Lots of contribution.
Magoo's the one that got away.
Man, I don't know why you're laughing. That guy, we could have that guy on our roster now. He'd get just as many snaps as Geno Smith. We'd have a couple more dollars to spend on something else, maybe an offensive lineman.
But
Man,
Alex
I
Magoo does not have the 99 quarterback coin flip rating in Madden.
Yep.
Well, that's because he didn't go through, he's only been one preseason with the Seahawks. You have to learn that. You cannot learn coin tossing, just on the bench. You got to get that in a game situation. You got to be there when the game goes to overtime. You can't just learn everything on the bench. You got to be out there and you actually got to call. You got to say heads in a way that it sounds like tails. So no matter what it comes up, you win. You got to learn that stuff in game. You cannot learn that on the bench.
All right, well let's move on because we do have a quarterback that we will not be seeing, and that is topic number 4. And Ross, we're going to talk about the Carolina Panthers. Without Ron Rivera, without Cam Newton, are you losing interest in this game? It's a 10 o'clock game. It's on the East Coast. It's against a very, very bad Carolina team. I don't even know what's Carolina's record right now. Are they
like 3-8-1 or something?
They're 5-8 right now. So they're in 3rd place in the NFC South.
They could win it.
Just kidding, obviously.
I'm looking at their record. Their best win has been maybe at Houston and versus Tennessee. Other than that, they've lost 5 in a row. And they're losing to teams like Washington and Tampa Bay. They've lost to Tampa Bay twice already this year.
Was that bad?
And they've lost to Atlanta twice this year. So,
so one third of Tampa Bay's wins have come against the Carolina.
Yeah, I mean they're going to go 0-6 in the division. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, who's going first? Am I talking? You talking, Zeb? Zeb talking.
No. Ross first.
Oh, it's me first. Like I don't know. Zeb and I are going to disagree on this a little bit, which is probably better, But I don't care about Cam. I don't like Cam. Cam's not my kind of guy. So, and it was also like I tried to get into it a little bit, but I'm cool about some things and like the whole dab thing and like, what are you doing? And then finally in the play in that Super Bowl where like he makes the business decision to not go for the fumble in the Super Bowl. Nah, he's just not my kind of dude. Like I get that in real life he's way better than his image. Like the players who play with him seem to be pretty loyal to him. So there must be more to that guy than we get to see on the sidelines, obviously, with this, sulking, whatever. But I sort of like the Kyle Allen story at the beginning of the season. Like Kyle Allen, like 3 wins or something. Like the dude was out of nowhere and was doing pretty cool. And I don't know. I'm not losing any interest. I'm interested to see where the Carolina Panthers go because it's time to move on from Cam because after that Super Bowl, he's become a bit of a coach killer. Like you think you've got an MVP caliber quarterback, but doesn't ever play like it, doesn't make decisions like it. So you've built this roster on a guy who's, instead of having the team let him down, he's sort of letting down the team. And so it's time to go. Ron Rivera seems like a really, really nice guy. Like it was telling, everybody said it in a positive. Like when he was fired, 1 million people reached out and said, nothing about his coach. And they all said, like, what a nice guy he was. And everybody presented that such a positive light. Like, oh my God, see what a quality human being this guy is. When he gets fired, all the people can talk about how good of a person he is. But I'm like, you know what? Like when Russell Wilson retires, I'm not going to talk about how he went to the Children's Hospital every Tuesday if he's my best quarterback of all time. What I'm going to first mention is that what he was on the team. Like, oh my God, that's our best quarterback ever. When you let a coach go and all everybody says is like, wow, what a nice guy. It feels to me like going on a blind date and you say to the guy, well, is she hot? And the guy's like, She's really nice.
Just a sweetheart.
Right. Great set of personality.
Right? I mean, okay, so we're just saying now that he's a coach, really good guy. You know, he will cook the turkey by himself, and you'll really like the turkey. He'll invite if you need a life lesson, he will give you the life. Yeah, well, how's his coaching? Well, I don't know. He's a really good guy. I'm not losing any interest in the game because they made coaching. Actually, I'm more interested because I like those situations. I like playing teams with interim coaches because I'm always interested to see if the interim coach is like willing to take the gambles, because if they do really, really well, they'll maybe get a shot at being the head coach. I like watching Kyle Allen play because he has no business being out there, but he's out there and he's just bested, right? He doesn't care if he throws an interception, because if he doesn't make those gambles, he has no shot at being the starter next year. So they're in a position right now to make the game a really interesting game. It's almost like a preseason game for them. It's just like tryouts for them. Everybody's trying to show up on film now. So I'm into it.
Who's their coach? Perry Farrell?
Kyle Allen. I don't know. Who's their coach right now? He's the interim coach for the Carolina Panthers. Carolina Panthers. See how much research I've done this week?
Guy from Jane's Addiction, right? Porno for Pyros? Perry Farrell?
Perry Farrell.
Yeah, that's right. It's Perry Farewell. Farewell. I don't know.
Oh, okay. So not the same guy. Okay. Different guy.
No, apparently not. He's a secondary coach until Tuesday and will now be the team's interim coach. He comes from a defensive background, of course, being a secondary coach, and has had success as an NFL defensive coordinator.
He's just like Pete. I'm not losing interest in this game. I couldn't lose interest in this game or any of the next few coming up if you paid me, because I don't care who we're playing. I'm there to watch the Seahawks, and I'm there to root for the Seahawks, and I'm there to watch them compete for another championship this year. So definitely not losing interest. Almost there's that unknown factor at this point, right? Like this, we've played the Panthers a lot over the last 4, 5, 6 years. Probably
this dude looks a little. No, sorry, just real quick. This guy, I just saw a picture of him. He looks a little bit like Mike. A little bit.
Mike Singletary?
Looks a little bit like him.
Oh, okay.
Looks good in sunglasses too.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
We've being a perennial winner, a team that's always competing for the playoffs. We've kind of developed out of division rivalries a little bit with some of these teams. Panthers, I think, is one of them. Saints, Packers, even the Patriots to a certain extent. But this is the first time in a long time it's kind of going to be a different team, right? Different coach, no Cam. So I'm kind of with you, Ross, where I'm interested to see what they're going to be like, what they're willing to do. And in that sense, it's almost a little bit scary, like, especially if, we keep talking about it being an easy game. Hopefully the players aren't thinking about it that way. Last thing we want to do is go down to Carolina and lose a second game in a row at this point in the season. So I'm up for it. I'm hoping the team and everybody else will be up for it as well.
To me, it really is cool. Like it sounds stupid, but when you have an interim coach, it's the funnest teams to watch because they have nothing to lose.
Right.
Except the game.
Everybody else, well, yeah, but that doesn't even matter. When you have an interim coach, nobody expects you to win any more games.
Yeah.
Nobody expects anything from you. You're structureless. You might even bring in a whole new playbook, but nobody's practiced it. Like it's the most relaxed football you're going to see from September on.
Yeah. I think what it's going to happen is the fact that there is no Ron Rivera and there is no Cam Newton, it is going to make the game more interesting because it's not going to just be the added factor that it's a new coach, potentially a whole new philosophy. Obviously, Norv Turner's still the one calling the game plan. But what we're going to see is what does this team look like without these personalities and these personas that really like overtake the team. We've seen that happen to Seattle. Like, what happens when the LOB is on its way out? What happens when beast mode is no longer fully bought into the team? Those questions of if that's happening are a distraction to the team and to the media and to the fans. We're not going to see that right now because Ron and Cam are not on this team. We're not going to hear anything about their presence because it's moving on to the next chapter. It's trying to win for next year. It's trying to show that, like, hey, I'm still a good coach. Like, keep me on the roster. Maybe I'm not a head coach, but maybe I'm going to be your defensive coordinator. Maybe you promote me to this other position because I deserve it. I show them that I can do these things. So I think to Ross's point, that's really true. And to Zeb's point, yeah, there's nothing about this game that is going to be less interesting. It's still a pivotal game. It's still a game that Seattle needs to win because there is no buffer. There is no opportunity for them to kind of like just luck into stuff. They have to perform well to close at the end of this year. I do want to kind of close on this one topic, and Ross, you kind of hit on this already, is that I've always tried to root for Cam Newton because he was a really dynamic player, but what I could never get past was, and I know it's really difficult, is that when he was winning, he's the most fun, he's the most audacious, he's the most like, rowdy, he's the most braggadocious, but when he's losing, he's like the worst. You add that to what happened in the Super Bowl, and that vision for me basically ruins anything that he's ever done because I have a hard time rooting or watching or giving any of my attention to someone who says like, you know what, if all you can do is be a front runner, then I'm gonna look elsewhere because that's easy. When you're doing really well, it's easy to gloat, and if you have no opportunity to come back from that, then I'm not going to be entertained by that because I don't believe that you can, and that's kind of my thing. So I'm sad that Cam Newton isn't as good as he wants to be or as good as he is when he's front running, because we've seen how he handles that adversity and he's really bad at it, and I think that kind of takes him down in my opinion.
Fair.
Can I say a couple of the things about the Carolina Panthers since we are playing them and we're about to move?
Yeah.
In the world of like everybody's now sort of running back by committee, or at least there's a change of pace back. Carolina Panthers, like Christian McCaffrey, he has 246 rushing attempts so far. Like their next most rushing attempts by anybody is Kyle Allen, but like by a running back, it's like 12 attempts. They're like after Christian McCaffrey, they don't give the ball to anybody. It's crazy. The person who this person has the second most rushing yards on their team is their wide receiver Curtis Samuel. It's weird.
That's interesting.
And DJ Moore has quietly just become like spectacular. I had no idea. DJ Moore is over 1,000 yards already.
Yeah, well, when you're in garbage time, the ball has to go to somebody. It's Christian McCaffrey and somebody else.
Christian McCaffrey needs 274 more yards receiving to go over 1,000 yards for receiving. He's over 1,200 yards already for rushing. So he's like 50 yards short of 2,000 yards on the season, rushing plus receiving combined.
And my point has always been is running backs are great. You're needed to be successful, but you're never going to be a frontline MVP.
Walter Payton.
Very rarely.
I mean, we're going back to it. The last three running backs that have been an MVP, we're talking about Sean Alexander, LaDainian Tomlinson, and Adrian Peterson, and all three of them broke a record. They had to break a record to get an MVP.
Well, and it makes sense. In Christian McCaffrey's, I buy your argument a little bit more with Christian McCaffrey because he's at 2,000 yards. He's probably going to finish with something like 26. But when so many of them are receiving yards, that means you're catching a lot of screen passes and things like that. If you're a running back and if you can get to like 2,000 yards for the season at 22, I put you in the MVP running, not because of oh wow, it's 2,000 yards, but because of what that implies. That implies like your rushing ability controls a game almost every game.
But here's the thing though. You say control, and my point will always come back to he can make an impact receiving late in the game when they need to come back. He's not going to make a huge impact running the ball because teams just don't have the ability to run the ball the same way when they're down a score because it just takes more time. And that's just not the way offensive run in the NFL.
With Christian McCaffrey, I see your point. I agree because so much of what he does is on the receiving end and it's in different situations. But my point is, again, like if you had a 2,000-yard rusher, just pure rushing yardage, like I would still say like I would totally be in the MVP running because, yeah, there's games where he can't catch you up because you're rushing the ball, but that doesn't disqualify. If 14 games or 13 or 10 games a year, the other team never even has a chance because you completely control the ball with your rushing and they don't even have a chance. Yeah, I mean, it's just like the same thing with passing. With passing, you can throw a lot more interceptions than with rushing. I mean, like, and if you can't complete enough passes in a row together, you're going to 3 and out. I mean,
Right.
It's, I don't know. You're disqualifying running for, in me, what sounds like an arbitrary thing. In certain situations, you can't run the ball, but at the end of games, if you can't run the ball, the opposite side, if you're only trying to pass the ball, you're not going to win either. That's why, like, the classic, heavy passing teams never win Super Bowls.
Right, and again, that's more of like how teams kind of win in the NFL. That's a different topic. But I don't want to take away from his performance because I do think it is amazing. I do think what Christian McCaffrey is doing this season and what he's done in the past has been an amazing thing.
And without any melanin.
And I feel like it's wasted because it's going to be on what is maybe a 4-win team at the end of the year. That's really unfortunate because, it sucks that his accolades won't stand well against other teams because they're just a bad team overall.
But I wonder if his stats are actually because they're bad.
And that's the point. Like if he's receiving the ball in garbage time because they're down 3 scorers and the quarterback's pumping the ball a screen pass and he takes it 10, 15 yards every single time, yeah, he's going to get like 70, 80 yards a game just passing the ball. But if it's coming when they're down 2 or 3 scores in a meaningless game that they're not going to win, that's not really valuable.
Oh, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like in his case, I agree with you that he's not an MVP candidate because of a plethora of reasons, not because it's an RB, not a QB next to his name.
Right. And I think that's a fair distinction.
Cool.
All
right. Predictions, man.
All right, prediction time. All right, so Ross, I'm going to hit you up with our predictions. Our first one, as always, is what's your final score? Seahawks at Panthers.
24-10.
Okay.
I like it. 27-16.
I'm usually the conservative one when it comes to scores, but I feel like Pete wants to make a show of it, and I think he's going to put a 30 burger out there. So we're going to go 36-18. They're just kicking field goals. No touchdowns for them. Ross, who's going to have more passing yards? Mr. Wilson or Mr. Allen?
I do feel a bit of a bounce back game, so I'm going to go Wilson.
Russell.
If you're going to put a 30 burger on someone, you're going to pass for a ton of yards. So Russell Wilson. Who's going to get more rushing yards, Mr. Chris Carson or Mr. McCaffrey? Ross?
I'm thinking McCaffrey.
Okay.
I feel like even when they are time-ish, they still just keep handing the ball up sometimes. So, yeah.
It's gonna be close. I'll say Carson.
It's gonna be Carson because the Seahawks are gonna run rawshed over the Panthers. They're Carson's gonna get his yards. McCaffrey will get his passing, receiving yards. He's not gonna get his rushing yards. Who is gonna see more targets, Ross? Josh Gordon, David Moore, or Malik Turner?
Gordon. I think they're starting to incorporate him in a couple. Like he got a pass that was not a slant last game, right?
Yeah,
so
sure did.
He had 5 targets last game.
Yeah, I'm happy with Gordon.
Yeah, I'll take Gordon too.
I think David Moore. I think Wilson feels like he needs to get him involved, and David Moore has been here a long time. I think David Moore is going to get some love from Wilson in this game. I don't know if he's going to be able to take advantage of it, but I think he's going to get the opportunity.
I feel a little bit sad for David Moore because that dude probably thought he was.
Yeah. Ross, over under passing touchdowns for Mr. Russell Wilson, 2.5.
Under.
Zeb?
Over.
If you're going to get that 30 burger, you got to go over. So I'm going to say way over.
You can pass down to the 5 and then give it to Chris, can you?
Nah. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a screen pass to Chris, if anything.
Way to go, Chris. 3-2, 3-2. I see you, 3-2. Way to go, Chris. I learned my vocabulary from watching Russell Wilson mic'd up.
Atta baby.
Over under total rushing yards. I have a typo in here, but 175 for the Seahawks.
Over 15 yards rushing.
That's
over.
what my show sheet says, but it's supposed to be 175.
175 is so many, but there's not that many because like you go like 150 for all the running backs and then 30 for Russell Wilson. So you go over. Under. I lied. It's under.
You lied. I'll stick with over.
I'm gonna say over because I think the Seahawks are gonna really try to pound the ball. I think Travis Homer and CJ Procius are gonna get some opportunities. It's not gonna be just a Chris Carson show, but they're gonna do well over 175.
So Sammy, you have us gaining like 600 yards of offense this game, or what?
I'm not saying that Russell Wilson's gonna pass for like 300, 400 yards. I'm just saying he's passing for more yards than Allen. I didn't say how many. Okay. And they're going to have at least 100, maybe 180, almost 190 on the ground. And then Russell Wilson's going to get some vulture touchdowns in the red zone.
All right. All comes together.
I'm with it.
And then the last prediction of the night, over under time of possession, 32 and a half minutes.
Under, because although we're going to dominate the game, it's not a conventional to like beat down. Like I said a second ago, even when they're losing and there's meant to be hurrying up, they don't hurry up. And like even when they're like losing, so they have to like throw deep, they don't. They just like keep dumping it off. So even when they're down by a bunch, they're still just going to run the normal offense. So they're going to hold the ball a bunch because we're going to have a couple quick scores. So it's getting under. Like, yeah, we could lose the time of possession game this game and still win.
Interesting. Zeb?
I think both teams are going to have the ball for 30 minutes on the dot.
Ooh,
go to Vegas with that bet.
If they're going to get over 180 yards on the ground, they're going to be running the ball a lot. They're going to be chewing up some clock, and I'm going to say over 32 and a half minutes. And, gentlemen, that is our show for this evening. Zeb, any shout-outs?
I have a shout-out. I got to shout-out Jake Lloyd spinning in fact, a really good trick.
Oh my God!
Boy, isn't he like in a mental institution?
He's had some issues.
I'm pretty sure he's in a mental institution right now because
why would anybody want to be in a Star Wars movie anymore?
Well, you didn't know, right, at the time. In
But
1996, when George Lucas comes to you and says, "I'm making new Star Wars movies. Do you want to be in it?" Your parents would be like, "Yeah."
You didn't know that the fans would like persecute you and basically try to kill you and ruin your life.
You didn't know the internet was going to be what the internet became. You didn't know that the Phantom Menace suck. You didn't know they were going to make you say things like, "My name is Anakin and I'm a person."
This is pod racing.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay, my shout out is to Santa. I'm hoping I'm on his good list. That's coming up soon. And my other shout out is to Amazon that saved my butt this week because I forgot to buy a couple things and they got stuff to me like in like 18 hours.
Nice.
I remember like buying my Boba Fett figure, sending it away with 5 proof of purchases, and it took like 2 months to come.
4 to 6 weeks.
Like you'd forget about it, right? They came and it felt so like a mini Christmas. Oh my God, I got a Boba Fett figure. Yeah. Sammy, what a shout out.
Shout out to the big fat man Santa. Hope he treats everyone well this holiday season. Shout out to Ross and Zeb for always being awesome. And I want everyone to go to hawkscast.com. Check us out on Twitter at Seahawks Podcast and Seahawks Forum. We are
a lot of good Seahawks talk, but also a lot of good Star Wars talk.
Yes, there's a great talk about The Mandalorian right now. Shout out to Jon Favreau for a killer series right now. But we are the Hawkscast Podcast. I am Sam, there is Zeb and Ross. And go Hawks.
Go Hawks!